Chapter 8. Not for Boys. Michelle's family was over for dinner that night. Nathaniel's dad cooked one of his favorite Italian dishes, chicken rollatini. It was breaded rolled chicken breasts stuffed with Genoa salami and mozzarella cheese. His dad made his own spaghetti sauce that Nathaniel felt was much better than any Italian restaurant. Along with the chicken rollatini, he made pasta, a green salad with homemade Russian dressing, and buttered garlic bread with toasted mozzarella cheese. It was a very big meal for only 4 adults and 3 children. As Nathaniel and Michelle set the table, they told of how they found the source of the pipe organ music in the old church. "I am amazed you found so much of it still standing over a century of being abandoned," his father said, placing the garlic bread on the center of the dining room table. "There's really only the frame of it left and the brass pipes." Nathaniel explained. "Just shows how powerful Mother Nature is and time." His father brought a serving dish with the steaming chicken rollatini to the table. It really is a joke how many think that man will destroy Mother Nature, when in fact is we are the ones whom have always been at her whim. "But the science says we are destroying the earth," protested Michelle. "Michelle, never trust anyone that says the science. As if the science is all settled," he replied as he took their plates, placing a rollatini on each and passing it around the table. "I wouldn't expect you, of all people, to not trust the science." Michelle's mother challenged him as she passed a plate of rollatini to her husband. "Science is always questioning the orthodox ideas of the day. If we always trusted the science, we would still think the sun revolves around the sun. Powered flight was impossible, and the sound barrier was just that, a barrier, preventing us from going faster than the speed of sound. Science, real science, is a road to the truth. It is never a final destination." "Are you denying climate change?" Michelle's father joined the discussion. "Climate has and will always change no matter what man does or doesn't do. Dinosaurs ruled this world for over 165 million years. Humans have been around for only 200,000 years. We have been here of a mere heartbeat of time in comparison to how old the Earth is." "But it is getting warmer," Michelle's mother insisted. 18,000 years ago, during the last ice age, this area we are living in now was under an estimated 6,000 to 7,000 feet of ice. 53 million years ago, Antarctica had palm trees growing there, all well before our human ancestors were even swinging in the trees. Yet, most of the experts now say the Earth warming is a threat. Michelle's mother insisted. "I am old enough to remember, as a kid, the experts were warning us that we were due for a new ice age. All I am saying is the climate has always and will always change. We do not and will not have all the answers. To think man can have power over Mother Nature is pure hubris on our part. She can easily wipe us out, as she did the dinosaurs. We do not have the ability to wipe her out. Don't trust those that think they have all the answers. Question and test everything. That is real science. Our survival is learning how to adapt to Mother Nature, not the other way around." "He has a point," Michelle's stepfather suggested to his wife. "I'm not sure if I can agree with you, but I can see your position." Michelle's mother replied. "It is all I ask." Nathan's dad smiled. Michelle's mother, realizing they will not come to an agreement on the subject, turned her focus on the aroma and inviting colors of the food before her. After cutting a piece of chicken covered in red sauce and melted cheese, she placed it in her mouth with her fork. "Wow, this is amazing." Michelle's mother seemed to forget the debate they were having. "Does he always cook like this?" she asked Nathaniel's stepmom. "I wish," she replied. "This is special." "What is the special occasion?" Michelle's stepfather asked. "I finished my book," Nathaniel's dad replied as he raised his wine glass. "I am also very proud of Nathan and Michelle for discovering the source of the pipe music from the old church." They all raised their glasses to Nathaniel's dad and to Nathaniel and Michelle. Gongxi, gongxi. Nathaniel's stepmom congratulated them in Chinese. Turning her attention to her husband, she asked, "When will you make money from your book so you can finally buy me a house?" "That could be the hardest part of writing a book," he answered as he cut himself a piece of rollatini, placing it in his mouth to eat. "Writing is the easy part. Getting published as an unknown is what is difficult." "Well, if you can't get your book published, you could open a restaurant." Michelle's mom answered, enjoying the meal. "Why don't you cook like this for me?" she questioned her husband. "My mom always did all the cooking. I never needed to learn how to cook," he defended himself. "And she only cooked Indian food, mostly rice and curry chicken." "Pops makes curry chicken with rice too," Nathaniel pointed out. "Is really good, although his chicken rollatini is my favorite. I like his Beijing kalya," his stepmom pointed out. "Beijing kalya?" Michelle asked. "Peking duck," his father explained. "But that is a whole day of cooking to make it just right." After dinner, Michelle helped Nathaniel clear the table as the adults sat in the living room for tea. After starting the dishwasher, they joined their parents. "Thank you, Michelle, for helping Nathan clearing the table for us," Nathaniel's father said as the two sat down on the smaller sofa together. For such a delicious meal, it was nothing at all. Michelle smiled. "Besides, I like doing things with Nathan. We have noticed," her mother said before sipping her milk tea. "Well, I have something special for both of you," Nathaniel's dad told the young couple. "I am very proud of both you, how you were brave enough to find out the truth about the pipe organ music in the woods." "Thanks, Pops," Nathaniel replied. "But you don't have to give us anything." "I do. A greater challenge that will take great courage," his father answered. Michelle's mother seemed nervous. "Greater courage? What's the challenge?" Nathan sat up, not afraid, knowing his father would never let him do anything dangerous or harmful. His father took out a large old-fashioned brass key from his pocket and placed it on the center of the coffee table. Everyone looked at the key. It was as big as a person's hand. A key. Michelle's stepfather stated the obvious, then asked the question they were all thinking. A key to what? A place not for boys. Nathaniel's father sat back with his tea and a grin. "Not for boys," Michelle replied. "You mean the factory floor?" "I spoke to the landlord, and he was so happy how we debunked the tales of her. He gave me the key to prove that the factory floor is also nothing to be afraid of. His hope is his workers will then not fear turning it into a recreation center for the complex, and they will also have the courage in renovating the top floor into additional apartments. We just need to prove there is no ghost of Mr. Cretan walking the factory floor. We can also find out what they actually made there too." Nathan was excited about the challenge. Michelle, though, feared for Nathaniel. "It's not for boys, Nathan. Only girls were allowed on the factory floor." "You don't have to come with me," he assured her. "Besides, he won't be alone." Nathan's dad added, "I'll be going with you tomorrow. We'll do this together. I'm also curious to know what they made in the factory. It could be an interesting book someday." It was a cool, beautiful November day when they stood outside the large double doors of the factory entrance that was on the west end of the building. His father brought hard hats with them that the landlord had given him. He also had work gloves to protect their hands. "Are these necessary?" Nathaniel asked. "It's an old building. No one has been in it for decades. Better safe than sorry." His father strapped on his helmet and put on the gloves. Nathan did the same. "Do you want to do the honors?" His father handed his son the large brass key. Nathaniel smiled and took the key. Feeling the weight of it in his hand, he heard Michelle calling out to him. "Wait." She ran up wearing denim overalls, a bicycle helmet, and garden gloves. Nathaniel looked at her. "Where are you going?" "I'm going with you." "You're not afraid?" he questioned her. She smiled at him. I thought you noticed that I am not a boy. You can come along, Michelle, but stay behind us. Not so sure how safe your bicycle helmet will be in there. Nathaniel's dad agreed for her to join them. He then looked at Nathaniel, who was still holding the large brass key in his hand. Ready. Nathaniel walked up to the large iron padlock that secured the door. He inserted the key and gave it a turn to the right. The key didn't move. He put a little more force into turning the key in the old lock and began hearing the tumblers in the lock turn and open. The rusted iron latch sprung loose. With his father, they both grabbed a rusted iron handle with their gloved hands and swung the heavy antique oak doors open. Within, sunlight was streaming in from the skylights above. Heavy machines stood silently on the large factory floor. An iron shaft above them hung the length of center of the building attached to gears at the end of the east wall. Thick leather straps were connected to additional gears that were geared to the shaft. The ends of the leather straps tightly wrapped around the gears of the factory floor machines. They looked like heavy-duty sewing machines. The shaft connected to the water wheel. As the gears turned, so did the shaft. It then passed its energy to the outer gears connected to the leather straps, which in turn powered the sewing machines. Nathaniel's father explained to them. Simple, but effective. They walked in further, brushing cobwebs away from them. The floor and the machines were covered in layers of heavy dust. Nathaniel and his dad left footprints as they walked further in. Michelle looked at the footprints in front of her and thought how it reminded her of pictures of the footprints on the moon from the Apollo missions. Nathan turned and faced Michelle, who was still standing in the doorway. Are you coming? I think it is safe. There is no sign of the ghost of Mr. Cretan. He too looked at the footprints behind him. No other footprints than our own. Not even raccoons. Michelle walked up to Nathan, adding her footprints alongside his. Interesting, Nathaniel's father said, looking at one of the sewing machines. It is clear they left in the middle of their work. I wonder why. The two stood beside him and looked at the first machine. There was an old garment in it, almost finished with its stitching. Nathaniel's father easily broke the thread that was being used and held up the garment. What is it? Michelle asked. It's a corset. His father explained. They were used under women's dresses to give them an hourglass figure, held in their stomachs. He smiled. Next to the machine was a wood barrel. It was filled with long splitters of bone, just the right sizes for the corsets. Michelle picked up one of the ivory bones and dusted it off. And these? I'm guessing whale bones. They, along with the heavy fabric, strengthened and gave the corsets their shape. They killed whales for corsets. Michelle condemned the action. Whales are intelligent, gentle animals. We know that now. His father defended the past. At the time, whales were hunted for their blubber. He looked up and pointed out the old brass lanterns that hung above them. They used the blubber for oil to light their lamps. Discovering crude oil to make kerosene ended the need to hunt for whales. One could say oil production saved the whales. What about the bones? Nathan asked. Waste not, want not, his father answered. Economically, it was best to use the whole whale. Crude whaling ships out of New England were sent around the world to hunt the gentle beasts. It costs money to do that. They had to make a profit as best they could. Make a profit. The idea upset Michelle. Yes, Michelle. It is how men would feed, house, and clothe their families. Whale oil was an improvement over lighting by candles that could often start fires. Remember that candles were also made from purified animal fats and beeswax. For the time, whale oil was an improvement. Whale oil lamps were safer, more reliable, and much less labor-intensive to make. Most home keepers had to make their own candles. It took hours adding wood to a hearth to keep a fire burning to melt fat and beeswax to make their own candles. "What's a hearth?" Michelle asked. It was a very large fireplace that was used to heat the home, cook, do laundry in, make soap, make candles, etc. They had to keep feeding wood into it to keep the hearth burning. "Why whale bones for the corsets?" Nathaniel changed the subject. "Whale bones are pretty strong like most bones, but more flexible. They were ideal to shape a corset," his father explained. They continued to explore the factory floor, taking pictures of everything they found. The factory floor had a couple of large cutting tables and 24 heavy-duty sewing machines powered by the old water wheel. Next to each machine were stacks of pre-cut heavy fabrics, some fine lace for trimming, and barrels of pre-shaped whale bones. "I think we can let the landlord know that his workers have nothing to fear. This will be a great space for a recreation center. And you two can now let everyone know what they made on the factory floor," Nathaniel's dad stated. Walking back to the doors they had entered, Nathan and his dad both looked up and saw the glass room office of Mr. Cretan's, that he had used to allow gentlemen to look down upon the girls working the machines. To the left, a spiral staircase rose from the floor to the office box above. Michelle didn't want to look up at the glass box, fearing Mr. Cretan would be standing there looking down upon her. "Should we check it out?" Nathaniel approached the spiral staircase, looking up. To Michelle's relief, Nathaniel's father replied, "I don't trust those old rusty stairs. Best to let the landlord's workers explore that office."